Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down a major economic drama unfolding in India. You see, the government is flooring the gas pedal on its own economy, but at the exact same time, it's getting hit by this massive shock from the outside. So yeah, let's get right into it. What we're seeing in India right now are two incredibly powerful and completely opposite economic forces clashing head-on. And this isn't just some academic exercise, right? This is a really high-stakes situation with real consequences for millions of people and the future of one of the world's biggest economies. All right, so let's really set the stage for this economic tug-of-war. You've got this huge boost coming from inside the country, but it's colliding with a really painful shock from the outside. So, on one side of the rope, you've got the domestic stimulus. The government's making a big move with the goods and services tax, the GST, cutting it to get people to open their wallets and start spending. But pulling hard in the other direction, you've got this huge external shock, massive US tariffs that are just hammering exports, jobs, and overall confidence. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the tailwind. What's the force giving the economy that big push forward? Well, it's all about a major tax cut. So what the government has done here is pretty clever. They've taken their really complicated goods and services tax system and simplified it way down to just two main rates. And the goal is super simple: make a whole bunch of stuff cheaper and put more cash right back into the pockets of India's enormous middle class. And we're not talking about a small change here. The scale of this stimulus is just massive. We're looking at 48,000 crore rupees. To put that in perspective, that's about $6 billion US. That's a huge injection of cash aimed squarely at firing up spending at home. So think about what this actually means for people. Everyday things you buy, like soap and food, get cheaper. Big ticket items like an air conditioner or maybe your first small car suddenly become more affordable. Even things like health insurance cost less. The bottom line? For millions and millions of families, this is a direct boost to their spending power. All right, so just as India's economy is hitting the accelerator, ready to take off, bam, it runs smack into a giant wall. So now, let's talk about the headwind, the American tariff shock. And you've got to understand, this is not some small, polite trade dispute. We're talking about the United States slapping a 50% tariff. That's huge on a massive range of Indian products. This is a major economic punch, and it's aimed right at the heart of India's most important export industries. And if you want to grasp just how big a deal this is, look at this number: $60 billion. That's the value of Indian exports directly getting hammered by these tariffs. That is a gigantic blow to trade with what is, its single biggest partner. And here's the thing, these tariffs aren't just spread out evenly. Oh no, they're like a laser-guided missile designed to inflict maximum pain on very specific, labor-intensive industries. We're talking textiles and apparel, gems and jewelry, marine products. These are the sectors getting hit the hardest. And these aren't just abstract industries. They employ millions of people in key hubs like Surat and Tarapur. And the reaction? It was instant. The shockwaves hit the financial markets immediately. In just 1 month, just one, foreign investors yanked 42,000 crore rupees, that's over $5 billion US, right out of India. It was one of the worst months for capital flight ever. So what happens when this unstoppable domestic force smashes into this immovable external object? Well, you get a really complex picture with a very clear divide opening up between winners and losers all across the economy. So what's the final score here when you add it all up? What's the net result? Well, you can see it right here. The GST cut, yeah, it gives a nice little boost. But the drag from the tariffs? It's estimated to be about twice as powerful. And that means, unfortunately, the overall effect on economic growth is actually negative. And this is where you see that split I was talking about. It creates this dramatic divide in the market. The winners, they're the companies that are focused on the Indian consumer. Think about your fast-moving consumer goods, car companies, real estate, banks. But the losers? Oh, they're those crucial export-focused firms, the textile and jewelry makers that are now staring down a total collapse in their U.S. orders. And this right here, this is the central paradox of the whole situation. Imagine this. A family might be saving a little money on their groceries thanks to that tax cut, which is great. But at the same time, their job security could be in serious trouble if they happen to work in an export industry. So they're gaining as consumers, but they're at risk of losing big as workers. Okay, so what's the big picture here? What's the strategic takeaway from all of this? What does it really mean for India's path forward? When you boil it all down, the government's domestic stimulus is really acting as a defensive shield. It's an absolutely crucial buffer that's cushioning the blow from these tariffs, helping to keep the lights on for domestic demand. But, and this is a big but, it can't be an offensive sword. It just isn't powerful enough to completely cancel out the damage from such a major external shock. And this whole situation puts India's central bank, the Reserve Bank of India, in a ridiculously tough spot. I mean, think about it. On one hand, what's happening globally might give them room to cut interest rates to help spur growth. But on the other hand, the tariffs are weakening the Indian rupee, and a weaker currency risks higher inflation. So their hands are basically tied. It really limits how aggressively they can step in to help. And all of this whole economic drama, it brings us to one final critical question. Is a strong domestic economy a big enough shield to protect you against a full-blown global trade war? The answer for India isn't just going to be a fascinating story to watch. It might just become the playbook for other emerging economies trying to find their way in an increasingly volatile world.